This is WPSL Port St. Lucie, the talk of the Treasure Coast.
Following is a paid program. The content is provided by the advertiser. WPSL, its staff, management, and ownership are not responsible for the content. Investment involves risk. Prior to making any investment, an investor should meet suitability requirements. Past results are not necessarily indicative of future performance. Neither the opinions expressed nor the information provided constitutes a recommendation to purchase or provide investment advice. The material presented is not a substitute for obtaining professional advice from a qualified person or firm. Securities offered through Centaurus Financial, member FINRA and SIPC. And now, the host of the Team Martek Hour, Joe Martek.
Mr. Joe Martek.
Mr. Joe Martek?
Mr. Martek.
Mr. Martek.
Well, you're older.
You know what it is. We got the station owner's husband as our producer today, and the station owner's husband doesn't realize how much money I owe the station. So
I guarantee he does.
No, Carol won't tell him. 340.
You have to understand, I just kind of coast through life. She worries about all that stuff.
340-1590, 340-1590. This is technically the Dan and Joe Show. We renamed it because it started off in 2004, give or take, being the Team Martek Hour. And then it just kind of evolved into 90% of the time, the team has ended up being the Dan and Joe Show.
It's because they're all no-shows.
They're all no-shows. But we also have had a pretty regular guest appearer, Mr. Alan Love, who's a retired prosecuting attorney from Wisconsin.
Well, it's always good to have that attorney's opinion when you and I get carried away, so he can bring us back to reality.
Yeah,
what
but
we shouldn't
you ever
say.
notice the problem with attorneys? They're so used to getting paid by the word that they take a sentence and turn it into a book.
I have noticed that.
You didn't say that.
Well, that's because they got to unexplain what they just explained.
I think we should have a couple of calls from disgruntled attorneys, but you wait and see how long they talk. Anyway, Alan, is that a fair statement?
Well, you notice I just wait until the nonsense is over. Hello, everybody. Nice to be with you.
340-1590, 340-1590. So starting in about 2004, we have another attorney. Now we got to move Alan out of the picture and put Greg in the picture.
No, that's all right. Keep him there.
We got two,
We'll
having two attorneys in the same room.
Oh, boy.
I know.
Here we
I
go.
Conflicting views.
You know what happens? It's like going to a real estate closing. If you have one attorney, it takes 2 hours. If you have two attorneys, it takes 4 hours. If you have three attorneys, it takes 3 days. Right, Greg?
If you say so.
So Greg Fasula, attorney, Dan Woron, independent insurance agent, Joe Martek, financial advisor, started doing these radio shows somewhere around 2004, and the concept was very simple. Clients have questions that none of us know all of the answers to, but the main things that Joe Martek does as a financial advisor is help people with their money, trying to protect their money, save them money, and make them money. But in the meantime, one of the first things I normally do when I meet a new suspect or prospect is ask them if they have done their estate planning. Now, Greg, I don't usually say it that way. I just ask them if they're ready to die.
Which basically means the same thing.
Makes the same thing. So Greg tried to teach me to say, Joe, you need to class up a little bit and say estate planning. I said, but when I talk to some of my clients, they say estate, and they said, look, that single wide trailer of mine is all my estate. Mm-hmm. And I said, yes, it is.
It is. It is. People don't realize if you have a car in the driveway, you have an estate.
Yeah.
It may not even be your home.
No,
but,
that's right.
But
that is.
You have an estate.
Yeah.
And the state of Florida will figure out a way to disperse of it if you don't.
Exactly. Sometimes it works out well, or works out fine that way, but a lot of times it doesn't, depending on your situation. You may not want the state saying where everything goes.
What do you mean you may not? Hardly ever.
But you never know because you're gone.
Basically, if it's just you and you have children, which is kind of rare these days.
Yeah, right.
That's what state statute is going to say. Those are your heirs
Yeah,
by
yeah,
statute.
yeah.
But
Did you say errors? My children.
Well,
are
then, yeah,
errors
close enough.
too.
It's amazing how that word heirs and errors are almost the same, right?
Now, you may not necessarily be gone. I mean, you could be related to Shirley MacLaine, who's been reborn several.
Well, you
times
can
over the
be
last
semi
400 years.
gone is
And
what
you
you're
still
saying.
can rule from the grave if you do your
If you do it
will
right.
and your you can rule from the grave.
Yeah,
if
you
you
know,
do-
but
Yeah.
that's an absolute fact.
yeah.
You know, in fact, Greg and I have a few very favorite attorney stories, but one of them, a client of mine, husband and wife, successful, retired, he dies. So she calls me up and says, Joe, my husband died. And I said, hey, I'm sorry to hear that, everything, da-da-da-da-da. And she goes, anyway, I've got to go take a house and put it in the trust. And I said, wait a minute. You have a trust and your house is not in the trust? She goes, no. And I said, why not? She said, well, the attorney that did the trust said when one of you dies, the other one come in and I'll put the house in the trust then. So Dan and I were sitting there saying,
Ka-ching.
why in the world would an attorney do that? Now, and Greg said,
I don't know.
I don't know.
might-
Typical
I don't
strong
know.
attorney
I
answer.
might have forgot.
Dan and I said, looks like a dollar sign to me to get more bucks.
Okay, this is what I think. The assumption was that both of their names were on the deed, husband and wife.
Right.
You know,
Assumption.
indication of the marriage. So that means one spouse passes away.
It's automatically
it
the other.
automatically goes to the surviving spouse.
But you know what that word assume means, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we all know that one. So the key was this. I said, okay, well, no problem. Look, instead of you giving that attorney a couple $100, I'll take you to the courthouse. You buy me lunch at McDonald's for $10. I didn't say McDonald's, but that was close. Anyway, and we'll get it done. So we go to the courthouse, and they bring up the deed, and the clerk says, okay, fine, I can put your half of the house in the trust, but your deceased husband's, I cannot.
Right.
Because
Right.
the deed did not say husband and wife.
Right. There is no indication of the marital relationship. So who's to say it's not mother
Brother
and
and sister,
son,
mother and
brother,
Wait a
sister,
minute.
No,
That's
absolutely.
how
Really?
technical
Oh,
it is.
Greg,
Absolutely.
Greg, why do you think Carol doesn't have your name on any of these deeds?
Now I understand.
Now
Now you understand.
Well, the thing in Florida is that if it says husband and wife on your property, you die, it's hers. She dies, it's yours.
Right.
But if it said, let's say it was you and me, we owned a piece of property together, and it had,
We're not married.
but you're cute.
You can
Good
be
now,
now.
you can be.
Yeah,
Hey,
you
can't
can
we
be
get married
now.
in Florida now?
You can.
First, you'd have to get you divorced.
You have to
Otherwise,
grow
it's
your hair
bigamy.
longer.
Who's going to wear the long hair is the question, right? Anyway, the key is this: if you own and I own a piece of property together, and you die, your half goes to your estate. I die, my half goes to my estate, unless we say on the deed joint tenants with rights of survivorship, JTWROS. That means I die, it's yours; you die, it's mine.
Right.
Now, in the state of Florida, Greg, correct me if I'm wrong, all you have to do is say husband and wife, and if that's your property, automatically it goes to the spouse.
Right.
As
Right.
long as you are
What if you just say husband and wife and you're not?
interested.
Sounds like fraud.
Sounds like fraud. Then what happens is it could pass, but if the other relatives come out of the woodwork,
Yeah, exactly.
then it can be more interesting, right? Well, anyways,
Wait a minute. How would it be fraud?
you
mean,
lied.
oh,
Because
you
you're
just
not
two
married.
people living
You're not
together?
married. You're just living together, and you
Oh,
pretend
wow.
you're married. You ever done that?
You know,
No.
it's not a legal
Common law.
relationship.
No way I would have.
Yeah, but common law is no longer legal in Florida.
No common law in Florida.
There
No.
might be other states.
Mhm.
I know. That's,
that's
Cliff,
right.
you're
Yeah,
lucky.
it is in other states.
Yeah. But not
I
Florida.
know that
It's
from
not
talking to
common
people.
here anymore.
It's not common
Not
here.
common at all.
So anyway, now let me ask you this, Greg. This is a question. What if I married 50 years ago when common law was allowed? I mean, I wasn't married.
I mean, you've been living together for
We've been
50
living
years.
together for. Is that common law?
It should be, right?
It should-
Grandfathered in,
Grandfather?
I would think.
You
What do
would
you
be a
think?
grandfather.
And I'd be a great grandfather by then, or great great grandfather. Anyway, what I was trying to say was, so we go to the courthouse and we can't put her house in the trust. The half of the house had to go through probate. Now, the lucky thing was, and I mean this is pure luck, that this was an only marriage. They had 3 children, all 3 of their children. It was not stepchildren. Because I have seen the stepchildren come in under this same scenario, and you want to see a can of worms. Like
Donnybrook.
Right.
Yeah.
Donnybrook, is it? Yeah.
Right.
So we have talked repeatedly for people to check their deed, just to double check and make sure that it does have, because I don't know how many times, Greg, you run into it a lot more than I do, but it still occasionally comes up.
It does come up.
Yeah.
So if my deed said Dan Woron and Nancy Woron, that's not the same as Dan Woron and Nancy Woron, husband and wife.
No doubt about it.
Husband and wife, a married couple, his wife. There's got to be some indication of.
So if I put his wife on it, it'd be okay.
That would work.
Or somebody else's wife.
Somebody else's wife.
In a marriage situation, wouldn't you also want to have the JTWROS joint tenants? Or
You
no?
don't need it.
It's not necessary.
It's not necessary.
Now,
Okay.
wait a minute. If you've got a marriage license,
Right.
what difference does it make?
That means you're married.
Means you're married. That means title the right way.
Because it's not a clear title.
But if it doesn't say it on the title,
Wow.
Yeah.
That's why you don't take care of the business aspects.
see, now you know. 340-1590, 340-1590.
But the thing about the stepkids, that's what we were talking about before. If you don't have a will and you go by Florida statute,
right?
Stepchildren would be excluded, and whereas a lot of times.
Well, how about this? Let's suppose I get married, I get divorced, I have children by my first marriage, and I die and leave everything to my new wife. I could disinherit my children if I don't do it properly.
No
You
kidding.
could, yeah.
And that happens more frequently than people realize.
Oh, boy.
Sure,
Yeah.
sure, it happens. I've seen it happen.
Yeah, I have to.
Yeah.
340-1590, 340-1590. That's one of my favorite stories, but my real favorite story is, now we've got 2 attorneys here. Okay, Cliff, we got the spotlight on the attorneys. Okay, this is being recorded, so I want you to watch what happens. So now we're going to talk about probate. Have we ever heard that word probate before? Now already we got 2 attorneys smiling just immediately. So here's the scenario.
They tried to fight it off.
He's trying to fight it, Greg is. Alan's already smiling. He remembers the good old days. Anyway.
Yes.
Anyway, reprobate? No, that's very
It's
close.
close.
It's just
It's very
probate.
close.
Yeah, but yeah. The reprobate is not good.
Reprobate.
Anyway, here's the scenario. Joe Martek drops dead, and I've got a $1 million probatable estate. Now, Greg will give us a lecture.
Paying your bill before you die, though.
I know. Greg would give us a lecture about this probatable estate stuff. And then my daughter goes to see Greg right away because she can read the paraphernalia we've got hanging out in the office that says, I know him. So she goes there and she says, hey, Greg, my dad died. He left $1 million, probatable estate. How do I get the money, and how long is it going to take? And Greg says,
It's going to take a while.
they give definitive answers, right? And then the next thing is she says, okay, how much are you going to charge me?
Well, because it's Joe and all the grief he's given me throughout my life, probably about double.
But if it wasn't...
So we have Florida statute as far as probate, and it's based on the amount of probatable assets.
Right.
So you said what, $1 million?
$1 million is
which
probatable.
Would be extremely rare, but possible that it's 3%. Anything over 100,000
Wait a minute.
by Florida
anybody
statute.
here, can
3%.
you do the math? What's 3% of $1 million?
30,000.
Now, you see that? One attorney's rubbing his hands together, the other one's grinning. I'm telling you. Now, my daughter says, well, some father I've got, if he'd have done a trust and paid you $1,500 or $1,200 or whatever you charge for a trust, how long would it take to get my money, and what would it cost me now?
It'd take a lot less time, depending on what's in that trust estate,
Right.
what has to be transferred,
Right.
What has to be paid as far as expenses and
Right.
creditors and taxes and those things, but it would take much less time.
And how much money?
Would be an hourly fee.
So let's say it's 4 hours or 3 hours.
Yeah, so
6 or
you
800,000.
probably, couple
Let's say
thousand,
$1,000 less than 30,000. 1,000. What a difference. Anyway,
What a bargain.
what a
Yeah.
mark. So the
There's
key
a
is
difference.
this. There is some value to a trust, and not everybody needs a trust, but as I have
Yeah,
taught,
the key is it a probatable estate?
there you go. And what's the goal with the people when they establish a trust? You see, so Greg will counsel and I counsel people and try to explain the difference to them. Some people want a trust period just because
Yeah.
there's certain reasons.
They want a trust period because for whatever reason
Yeah.
they want things to go quickly and as smoothly as possible.
There you go.
Even though they may not have probatable estate or much probatable assets.
In the meantime, we got a caller. Caller, John, it's Joe Martek. You're on the radio.
Yes, good morning, Joe. I have a question.
Go ahead.
I'm going to go back a little way to set it up for you. I had a sister that had a big house in Port St. Lucie 28 years ago, and after being there for 20 years or more, the children left, the husband died, and she downsized and bought a double wide in, one of the local parks here, Spanish Lakes. Her daughter moved in with her. My sister died last year. I believe they were both on the title. And my niece died a couple of weeks ago, 53 years old. Now, the niece left 3 daughters and a couple of, actually 3 brothers. Where does the home go after, if it's not a husband-wife or a common law?
Okay.
Which of the children?
But that's a rental park, and
okay.
it's a rental trailer, right?
No, they own it.
They own the trailer,
Okay.
but they didn't own the lot.
No, you don't own a lot in this park.
Right. But how did they own? How did the? You said both
was
of their
my-
names were on the title.
Yes, my sister and her daughter were both on the title.
Right.
Mr. Pat-
And did it say? How was it worded?
I've never seen the title. They can't find the title, and the daughters want to get a title in their name so they can sell it.
Okay.
And they don't know how to go about it.
Okay. Well, assuming it just went to your sister, right? And you're saying what? She didn't have a will.
No, but the title was in my sister and my niece, which was her daughter. I believe it was in both of their names.
Okay. Assuming that it passed to your niece, right? And then you said your niece passed.
Yes,
And did she have children?
yes, 3 daughters,
Okay. But no will.
no will.
Yeah, with them. Okay, by statute, by Florida statute, it would pass to her children. She's not married,
Oh.
right?
Does it go to? No, she wasn't married. But does it go to all 3, or to the eldest, or how does that?
No,
work?
to the 3, equal.
Oh, equal. Okay,
Yeah.
that's what I need to know. Yeah.
Yep.
Let me complicate it, Greg. On the title, see, title's different than a deed.
Yeah.
So it's like I see, it could be a car, it can be a mobile home. It's a vehicle as far as the state's concerned. So the title is issued. Let's say Joe Martek and Greg Fasula. Okay, but do you do JTWROS on those things or not?
I'm not 100%. I think you can.
But I don't know that. I've never seen that. I just don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
The key is, I guess, what you're saying is though, because they both are deceased now, that it would go to the heirs in line, right?
Right.
So-
So she had no will. So
To
it
the
would
three-
go-
to the
go
three
her
daughters.
children.
Yeah,
It wouldn't go to the eldest daughter. It would go to
No.
all
No.
3. Is that
all
correct?
3, correct.
Okay, and they all have to, I guess, sign some paperwork to apply for
Sell
a
it.
title, and then.
Bottom line is, what you might do is, are you sitting at home right now?
No, I'm actually driving.
We don't want to give
Yeah,
you we don't want to give you Greg's phone number, but
That,
but you might call back to the radio station afterwards and ask for Greg's phone number, and then give him a call and talk to him off, because he could.
that could be a pretty simple procedure. That's her homestead, and it's not.
One
But
of the daughters lives in Boston. The other 2 are in Virginia.
No, but it was the homestead of the niece
No,
that
but
passed.
it's not. It's a rental park.
Doesn't
Yeah,
matter.
but
it's a
she
title.
owned the title. She owned the home.
Yes,
Mhm,
but
but-
it's titled like a car.
but you still can technically get
A homestead?
A homestead. You as far as the way that it passes.
Oh, so it doesn't have to go through the court.
probate. Mm-hmm.
A nice, easy system.
It can still
it's
pass
done
as
right.
probate.
So where do the daughters get a copy of the title if the title?
They have to
hasn't
do a
been
search.
found?
Yeah.
They don't. Oh,
The
You're talking
DMV,
to
I
me?
suppose.
Well, we're just talking in
DMV.
general here, John.
okay, all right. I'm trying to pick up on everything.
Literally, you can do a title search, and you can find a title. That's you go through the court.
At motor
DMV.
vehicles, you do a
Yeah.
title
Yeah,
search. And
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
name and-
With the two
But
names.
the daughters would have to apply for the new title. Is that it?
Well,
They would probably have to get a court order.
Oh boy.
Not probably, they would.
Call Greg.
I'm telling you what,
Give him a
it's a
call.
little bit
Yeah.
complicated. It just takes some time, but it's not. This isn't the first time this has happened, so it's
How
not.
about if I call Greg Wyatt? Would that help?
No,
Is he in the office with you?
no.
Oh, okay.
Yes, he is.
Yes, he is.
What happened? Greg's here on the radio today, but this obviously is not his office. His office is in Port St. Lucie, though. But if you, Greg Fasula, Fasula, he's on the corner of Port St. Lucie Boulevard and Veterans Memorial Parkway.
We got two Gregs here today. We're in the majority.
Yeah, but the guy that's the Greg that's the station owner's husband, we don't talk about him.
Right.
John, hey, I hope we helped you, but it's hey, they're going to go to the three kids, but the three kids are going to have to do some homework, and if you help them, you might need Greg's help to have them sort this out, because if they're out of state, it makes it a
matter of
little more
finance.
difficult.
No, that's just the problem. All right. Well, thank you very much for your help. I appreciate it.
You're
Thanks,
welcome.
John.
See the other.
Whoa, that's.
Well, I would think they
That's a
got to get a
heavyweight
new
problem.
title showing the mother and the deceased daughter.
Because it's
And
recorded.
then you got to go ahead and make the change to her three
Her
daughters.
three daughters,
But they got to
yeah.
redo the original title so they can change it to give it to the three daughters.
Yep, exactly.
So how long
Exactly,
is
and what-
that procedure?
Oh,
through
that's
the
that's
courts
that's
with-
quick. That's pretty
That
quick.
shouldn't be too long. Now, what might complicate that is, did the niece, did she have debts? Did she owe anybody credit cards, hospitals, doctors?
If
Is
there's
that-
liens.
So,
Quote.
that could complicate
Now, can you
things.
put a lien on a title? Yes, you can.
Sure.
You can put a lien on a deed, I know. But
On
can
any-
you,
well,
anything can get a
I
lien.
mean, if you get a judgment against that
the court
person.
judgment, anything is outstanding. Either
Yeah.
one, technically, the mother
Like
or
medical bills and things like
anything. Boy, isn't this wonderful?
Yeah,
Yeah, isn't it fun?
That's why you need
it's
Greg.
wonderful.
340-1593.
that. But if it's homesteaded, isn't it judgment proof?
It is. yeah.
Technically, it is.
Yeah, so
but,
that's the way I would proceed.
but let me ask you this, Greg. Now, I don't know this. This is total ignorance. I have never heard of anybody homesteading a rental if you don't own the lot that it sits on.
Yeah, you don't own the land.
You don't own the land.
but
Can you homestead just the
okay,
unit?
so you're talking about different aspects. The homestead. You're talking about what? Homestead as a homestead exemption.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this would be the way that her residence, it's still her home. It's still her residence.
Okay, so
how
fine.
her residence could pass to her children as homestead.
Because it is actually her homestead. Forget
it's
the court.
her home as residence.
What if I lived in my car?
It could be.
That's a good question.
A
man.
motorhome, Dan.
Yeah.
Why not?
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know? I mean, look at there's people that have a rent. They sit in a park and they live in a $1 million motorhome, and we've seen them. You know, that's.
But yeah, I've done homestead as far as like for those type of
And
homes,
that's
manufactured
I think
homes.
Where Joe is going to is he's looking at the homestead exemption from a tax basis.
Yeah.
And you're not looking at it
Right,
that way.
right. There's, like I say, different aspects of homestead.
Where Greg is and where Dan is, the homestead in the state of Florida is exempt from attachment by creditors.
And the first 25,000 of taxable value.
Well, here comes you can.
That's a homestead exemption.
I know, but I'm talking. That's from a tax.
That's
standpoint.
real property, though.
But
right?
but that's a tax standpoint.
Right.
But
now
this
we're-
is not real property.
Right.
You're
No,
talking
no.
about.
If
So
I own my trailer, it's pretty real to me.
No, but I'm trying to say there's no property tax on it. The key thing that happens, though, and obviously the cost basis and reselling it, there's not going to be any gain. You can, if you own a homesteaded property, Greg, and you sell it you're now allowed, if you're a single person, to make $250,000 with a profit, and there's no tax on the gain.
The capital gain tax.
No capital gain tax. If you get married, which you are, Carol will be very happy to let you die right after that, because she can get a $500,000 gain. First, you have to make the money, though, which is you better get to work. Anyway, what I was trying to go with was from her with being the homestead, it could be exempt from attachment by creditors if there were judgments.
Right.
Okay.
True.
But then again, you or an attorney, I mean, this would have to be a filing with the court.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So that whole process could take a month or two.
Yeah,
but
That's
not really.
not that long.
But not really that.
Not that
It's
long.
not like going through the whole probate period.
No, you don't have to go. What the normal probate? What makes that longer is because you have to. Well, first you have to open up the estate. You have to get someone, a personal representative, designated by the court or authorized to handle the estate. That person's got to put the ad in the paper.
Right.
You know, notice to creditors, and you have to give creditors a 3-month time period. So, you know,
that alone is 4
that
months.
alone, you're talking 4 to 5 months.
Yeah.
Now, do you have to put it in any specific paper? Could I put it like in the
Hometown
paper,
news?
like way away from where we live?
I think it's got to be in the area, but I use Hometown News.
Okay.
It's cheaper.
Yeah, sure.
Cheaper for my clients, and it does the same thing.
340-15.
And there's no distribution. That's even
You pick it up at the restaurant.
340-1590. 340-1590. That's a brand
That was a
new
good
one
call.
that we
That's a
haven't
good
talked
call.
Wow.
about, that we've
That's
never talked about
complicated.
before. Yeah.
Wow.
You know, the interesting thing on a title to a vehicle, a boat, a mobile home, whatever, on the back of the title, when you transfer it to somebody else, there's no witness, no notary necessary. Did you know that?
That's true now. Used to not be that way. Our friend Gary, he went to renew his truck tag years ago. The lady there at the tag office said, "Oh, you sold your truck." He goes, "Well, it's parked right out there in the parking lot." She goes, "Up, according to our records, Julio, somebody down in Miami, got your truck." And he goes, "Well, what should I do?" Now, here's the part that irritated me. She goes, "Get a lawyer." That was her response. So I called my state rep. I said, "This isn't right. Surely there's something you can do to help my friend." He goes, "Let me have my staff research it." And they sent him down to the sheriff's office. They did a rubbing of the VIN number on the dashboard, filled out a form, took it to the tag office, and he was golden. So,
No
there are things
kidding.
that can happen.
So Julio almost got his truck.
Well, on paper, he did get it.
Yeah. Because he found the title, and all you had to do was sign his name and sell it to somebody else, and gone.
Yeah.
You know, it's not stolen.
Used to be you had to have it notarized and all that stuff. Not anymore.
Nope, just sign it.
340
Sign and date.
Sign and
See
go.
throw 340-1590, 340-1590. So back to we started doing these shows, the concept was, there you go. We want to explain things that only an attorney can do. Dan and I we can fake it a bit, but we need Greg to be the one that puts it in writing and makes it exactly the way it's supposed to be. You know, everybody's an armchair attorney.
And if not, their neighbor is.
Their neighbor is,
Yeah.
and you can go to Home Depot or Home Depot or whatever and make up a will or a trust or whatever you want. But hey, I had a client of mine that bought one of these services. You know, you pay so much a month and you get all this free legal.
Yeah.
So then they get the package in the mail to do a will.
Mm-hmm.
What did they do? They call me to come out and do it. And I
And
said,
to explain things.
why
right?
are you calling me? He says, well, because we can't figure this out. And I said, wait a minute. You hired these people to do it, and now you want me to do it. You need to go to an attorney.
Well, they gave him a
Yeah.
do-it-yourself kit. Here you go.
Do-it-yourself kit.
We were just talking about homestead. I saw some clients that they bought one of those trust kits.
Yeah.
And it's not really tailored to Florida law. And they wanted to put their Florida house into that
The
trust.
trust kit, right.
Well, there's a problem because that trust it's not Florida
valid
law.
in Florida.
There's nothing, could be valid, but there's nothing in the trust that would allow that home to be transferred to the trust and
Oh.
held by the trust as a homestead.
Phraseology, yeah.
So basically what we had to do is make an amendment to that trust to put the language into that trust.
Well, you were also part of the same thing. People say, and I've heard this question 100 times or more, and so have you, Well, gee, we got a mortgage on it. Can we put the house in the trust if it has a mortgage? The answer is yes and no. The phraseology has to be such in the trust that allows that to protect the lender.
Yeah.
And if it's not there, so much for that.
Now, what if it is, and in the future the house gets paid off? Do you have to go back and amend it?
No.
Nope.
No.
Because what happened is you're going to get a release of lien from the thing automatically, and the house has been retitled into the trust. So, 340-1593. Anyway, so back into '04.
Why are we here?
'04, Dan Woron, independent insurance agent. And by the way, that was a big subject, independent insurance agent, especially back then because 1992, Hurricane Andrew hit, and Hurricane Andrew put 10 or 15 insurance companies out of business in the state of Florida.
It did, Joe. It put a lot of smaller companies, but more importantly, it caused most all larger companies to rethink their position here in Florida on property insurance.
Big time. And in fact, some of the major carriers got rid of nearly half of their book, especially on the east coast of Florida.
Anything close to the water, they had a tendency to get rid of.
So what happens is the captive insurance agent, in my not too humble opinion, was like an albatross. He represented one company and one company only, and if that company didn't do something or they non-renewed you, what were you going to do? As a captive, you were out to lunch. So the independent insurance agent doesn't work for one company. He works for the client. And in my not too humble opinion, again, there are, let's say, 100 independent insurance agents on the Treasure Coast, and one sits on the top of that peak as being the best one, and one sits on the bottom. Now, depending on my mood, Dan's either in first or second position.
Depending if you get your bill in the mail or not.
When I get my car insurance bill in the mail, that makes a difference. But
you've been demoted.
You get demoted. But what happened is, Dan has only got 38 years. Well, you are one old guy.
You know, I think every year you add a couple.
How many is it, Dan?
About that.
2 to 1 every year.
Every year.
It's getting there.
So what happens is, under his umbrella, and Dan is not a braggart or a pretentious person, but I love bragging for him because he saved me some money. And in fact, he's the only one that would insure me for a while.
Well, here's the thing, let's
That's
suppose
16 tickets after the red car.
Let's suppose you are an independent agent,
Right.
but you only have 2 or 3 companies.
Right.
You're not really as independent as you think you are. You only have so many places to go. Now, we've been very blessed to have the ability to attract and retain lots of companies. So, we're pushing 100 companies that we can work with. They don't all do autos or home or business, but altogether we have a lot of places to look and hopefully find the right place for that client at a good value for their money.
So we actually have an unsolicited testimonial sitting right next to you who happens to be a retired attorney, and you know them. They do anything for a buck.
Well, before you say anything, I'm not the type of guy that uses my business and my business card to make a friend. I don't say, become your friend and try to sell you my product. I never approached you to come see me. I appreciate the fact that you took it upon yourself to do so.
Well, what I want to say, Dan and Joe and Greg, is you've been talking on the radio since 2004 about your main purpose is to help people. And when I called your agency and was able to get virtually the same coverage that I was paying for before I called your agency, I am getting $1 worth of coverage for 62 cents. You saved me 38% for virtually the same coverage.
And I appreciate you letting people know.
And that to me says it all about helping people, because obviously you're making some money by getting the policy with your agency now, and Joe makes money in speaking with people, and Greg does, but it's the idea that the money in my mind with this team is secondary. You really care about people, all of you, and that's what I think makes you stand out as being top-notch, first-place people on the Treasure Coast.
So does Dan take the 62 cents in cash, or?
Yeah,
Yes,
normally.
yes. Make it out to me. Make the check out to me.
You know, how much do we have to pay you, Alan, to show up here? I keep forgetting.
Zero.
Zero. Oh, okay, I knew there was a dollar.
But here's the thing. Let's suppose, as an example, you're giving an insurance company $1,000 for your car insurance, and now you're giving them $680. You can take that extra $320 and do something with it. Why give it to an insurance company?
Exactly.
Do something with it. Give it to Joe or give it to Greg for their services. Take your wife out to dinner or whatever you want to do, but don't. You know.
If we had Mike Powell sitting here, probably in the last 2 or 3 years, you have probably saved 30 or 40 sales in real estate that wouldn't have closed because they couldn't afford the payment. They didn't qualify because all of a sudden the cost for the homeowner.
Well, you know, we just did that down in West Palm.
Yeah.
You know, Palm Beach County rates are a little bit different, and many carriers that I work with don't appoint agents in Palm Beach County South. But my license is good statewide, and I can sell statewide. So I had a real estate broker contact us looking to make the price work. We got their price down by $3,800, and that gave them the leeway to qualify for the loan. So I mean, it can happen.
I mean, literally, when you qualify for a mortgage, they look at your income and your ratio to debt. If you owe too much money, even though you might be aces and perfect credit, you can't afford to make the payment as far as they're concerned. Nothing to do with reality, but as far as they're concerned, you get turned down.
Yeah.
So you have to fit that box, that ratio. So the homeowner's insurance, people say, will go and say to the seller, what are you paying for homeowner's insurance? Well, that may be nothing what you're going to pay.
Absolutely.
So you that used to be an old rule, but boy, that old rule is exactly.
Well, one of the things that really bites people is you have this wind mitigation credit.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if it's over 5 years old, many companies will not take it. And what's happened over the years, Joe, is the credits that you were getting become harder and harder to get. Guys, they make these wind mitigation inspections more difficult to qualify.
There you go.
So if it's over 5 years, you have
may
to
have
redo
to get
it.
another one.
Yeah.
And the credits you used to get, you may not get. So don't base it on what the old homeowner was paying, because it may be totally different for you.
Yeah.
Dumb question. If you're getting a new roof.
Yes.
Yes, which we are. What about those credits?
Well, the best credit is for a hip roof. So that doesn't have anything to do with getting a new roof. If you have a hip roof versus a gable roof, the hip roof does have a much bigger credit. Okay, now if you're looking for the type of roof, you know, a metal roof is an excellent roof that I have seen here. I think it's stood up very well. Then you may want to go to an architectural grade shingle or tile roof. But the only other credit other than the hip roof credit is if there's a underlying membrane in case the roof gets ripped off to create a barrier for water and moisture to come into your house. That's a small credit, but if you're going to have the roof put on, you might as well put that on at the same time.
Okay.
340-1590, 340-1590. Yes, Mr. Love.
If I may go back to auto insurance, out of curiosity, you've got a number of companies, but do some companies look at different factors different than other companies? Like, if somebody gets a bunch of tickets where somebody else has a couple of accidents, or do most of the auto insurance company look at these things the same way?
Well, I'm going to pretend I'm an attorney here. Yes and no. Okay, so yes, most companies look at many of the same variables: age, driving record, type of car that you drive. But you've got companies that if you have a DUI, they shun you. They won't touch you. Other companies, if it's your first DUI, their statistics show that these people are statistically paranoid to ever have any more problems and are great drivers, great risks. Okay, so we know which companies gravitate to what type of client. Some companies say, oh, you have a 16-year-old son driving? We don't want you. Other companies say, yeah, we'll take you at a not very cheap price. Other companies say, hey, if your son's had driver's training and gets a 3.0, we have a really good program for him because our statistics show that those kids are not bad drivers. So part of our job when you hire us to go look for you is we extract the data we need. That's why when I see those commercials where they say, oh, we can do you a quote in 7 minutes. Well, in 7 minutes, we're just getting warmed up. Okay, there's a lot of stuff I need to know because some companies use credit, education, age, all kinds of factors to help us drive that price down. And that's what you're doing is you're hiring us like you would, Greg, for the knowledge as to where to go and get the best value. So it's like a yes and no answer.
You did tell Dan that you had the Lamborghini, which is out in the
That's
parking
it.
lot,
That's an
right?
acceptable car.
It's very it's just not cheap. 340-1590, 340-1590. Then we have a couple of more members to the group, which we alluded to Mike Paulus a moment ago, mortgage broker. Ms. Victoria Lloyd, Remax of Stewart, who I've known only since 1980, who's been in real estate since 78, who happens to be one of the top 100 Remax agents on the entire globe. And poor Vic, she thought she was only one of the top 100 in the state of Florida. And I said, Vic, there's not 100,000 Remax agents in the state of Florida. She goes, really? And I said,
Maybe at one time, but not anymore.
Maybe if we counted the ones that died and the ones that left, maybe.
Yeah.
But anyway, she's one of the hardest working people alive, and you can just take it to the bank what she does for people.
Well, I just had referred a client of mine to her. She took care of everything, and she called me yesterday and said it's all been done. If everything's been closed, just wanted to let you know. And I appreciated that because when I refer somebody out,
Yep.
it's nice to get a report back that it all went well.
Make sure that it went well.
Yeah.
Which, speaking of which, Alan Love at today's 4 o'clock show, which we don't talk about here on 89.9 FM Christian Radio, that's the junior show here. We have a lady that called in that named Norma that we gave to Mike Paulus, and Mike's in Italy for a couple weeks, so he hasn't followed up on her. So maybe she's listening to this one. She needs to call me back because I lost her phone number. But we promised to help people, but I can't help her because we lost her phone number. But anyway, we'll talk about it again later today. Anyway, Miss Victoria Lloyd, Remax of Stewart. Hardest working person, period. I don't care what business. I've never seen anybody work more than that girl. And if she says she's going to call you at 3 in the morning, take it to the bank. That's what she does. Mike Paulus, mortgage broker, hand in glove with Victoria, because those of us that have been around the block more than a couple of times know that if you're going to go buy a house, you should get your mortgage financing before you even get started to know what you qualify for.
It'd be nice to know.
And know what you're going to pay, know what your interest rates, all of the things, because you might get turned down. Mm-hmm. And I have seen people who thought they were aces that were perfect and get turned down because they hadn't pulled a credit report for 10 years, and all of a sudden there were some things on there that they didn't even know about that needed to be cured. So Mike Paulus, he has just done a magnificent job for people. Mike's a correspondent lender. He's almost 25, 30 years in the business. He's weathered the storm of all of the debacle in real estate and mortgages. And he's taught us a ton about what's available, because back when they said there was no mortgage money available, it was an interesting thing. That never happened. There was always the USDA program, which is a no money.
I didn't even know but here's the thing, and I'm glad that they're doing this. I truly believe that you should have to be able to show that you have the ability to repay the loan.
Isn't that amazing?
To get the loan. I don't think that's bad.
Well, the old rule before this debacle that happened was the criteria for buying a home or any kind was ability to pay.
Right.
Ability to pay. You had to prove you could afford it. Like Dan's saying, what a weird thought, right?
Yeah.
So literally, then it fell apart there for a while.
If you could fog a mirror, you could get a loan.
You could get a loan.
Exactly.
And then appraisal values went crazy. So they've changed the rules, tightened it up. But the reality is this: it's back to what I'm going to call reality rather than fantasy.
Mm-hmm.
And Mike can get creative. I mean, if there are certain things that can be done, I mean, it's no different than, on the insurance side. I know what can be done to maybe serve that client. Mike has that knowledge where if you come in and you have some issues, let's say like you were talking about some credit issues,
right.
He may say, do these 3 things first, and then I can get you a better deal. I can get you better terms, and you'll be good to go. Okay, so he's going to pre-guide you before you even apply sometimes.
Makes a monster difference. Monster difference. In fact, I had a client of mine, a retired lady, retired banker. She says, Joe, I'm going to go buy a house. And I said, well, you should call Mike. And she goes, oh, no. I'm a banker. I know what to do. I'll go to my bank. I have no problem. So she goes to her bank. They take an application. 3 weeks later, they turned her down. She calls me up, and she goes, Joe, you still have that mortgage guy's number? And I said, of course. What happened? And she goes, well, then I shouldn't have said what happened, because now I got to listen for 20 minutes for her to tell me the long story that basically she had co-signed for a nephew who didn't pay, and it's on her credit. So that needed to get cured.
Had to be corrected.
But her bank, all they did was say no. Whereas Mike, if she'd have talked to him originally, in 15 minutes would have told her, hey, you got a blemish on there. We need to find out what the story is and get it cured. And in 15 minutes, he would have had it done.
Or at least he could have told you
Well,
what needed to be
he'd know
done.
what you need to do.
How did she cure that? She gave the nephew a beating?
I think so. That
I
was,
would
that was
have.
one thing. But she may have had to pay it, or she may have had to call
Right.
back to the person that loaned the money,
Right.
the lender, and say, hey, my nephew signed, he didn't pay, let me settle. Sometimes they'll settle 50
Yeah.
cents on a dollar or 25 cents on a dollar
Right.
just to get rid of it. But you still need to get it off your credit report.
Right.
So
You can't ignore it.
can't ignore it. You know, in Florida, if I'm not mistaken, you get a judgment, it stays for 20 years or 21 years. And then after that, if the lender wants to, they can renew it again.
Yeah.
So they just don't go away by themselves, unless after 20 or 21 years. But that's kind of a long time.
They haunt you for a long time.
340-1590, 340-1590. Let me talk about my favorite team member.
Is that you?
That's me. Well, you know, I listen to CNBC constantly. It's my favorite place because it's all business news and talking about the markets. And they had some guys on the radio today, and Alan and I have talked about this. Quote, the stock market is full. By almost everybody's estimation, it is full. By many estimation, it is overfull. It's overpriced.
What does that mean, full? Overpriced?
Overpriced. Now, they use a price-to-earnings ratio, Greg, as the criteria. It's one of the easy ones. There's more, but the price-to-earnings ratio, if it's 10, that means that's a good number. If it's higher than 10, all of a sudden it gets risky. If it's higher than 20, it's usually high risk. If it's higher than 30, maybe it's a tech company that's growing like crazy, and maybe it's okay because it's growing like crazy,
Right.
but all of a sudden the value of the stock is way higher than the value of the company.
Right.
So we like these ones that are 10 or less. There aren't many. Today, the S&P 500 is probably hovering in that 20-25 range. The forward earnings are just not looking that good in spite of politics until our current administration and until our political situation gets corrected in the next couple of years. Maybe it will, maybe it won't. But we don't look for a quick turn in the economy, which people were hoping for, that would make the market more fair valued. So when I talk to most people today, I said, hey, don't get greedy. Accept 5 or 6% on your money. We can put you into instruments that are not common stock.
Did you hear on CNBC Ron Barron predicting that the market is going to double in the next 10 years?
Well, you know, and it probably will in 10 years.
He's talking about Tesla being $1,000 stock.
Well, look at Tesla. Tesla's not worth more than General Motors. Is there any reason for that? No. But why? It's because people think this Elon Musk is a flaming genius and that Tesla is going to be the dominant fixture because this man is a visionary.
well, when you start seeing rockets landing on land, yeah.
Well, he is a visionary.
He is
look
a
Look
visionary.
at Apple, look at Microsoft, look at these companies that have come along that were visionaries at the time, and maybe this guy is. But that doesn't mean that it's not grossly overpriced. But on the other hand, there's a lot of them out there that are overpriced that might be winners in the long run. I'm not going to pick individuals. I'm looking at the broad market today, and most of my clients are not too young. When you talk to somebody in their 50s, 60s, 70s, they get a bit more conservative and they're looking at things. Hey, what's the old Will Rogers? Remember that old thing?
I'm not that old, Joe.
Yes, you are. Will Rogers said many, and those of us that are very old remember Will Rogers, and that
I remember, but I don't remember what he said.
he said, I'm more concerned about the return of my money than the return on my money.
That's true.
Well, so I say to people, get 5 or 6% and you're okay. Now, every once in a while, I'll have one that comes up and says, well, Joe, do you have anything that's around 10? I said, well, I like REITs right now, real estate investment trusts. They have to pay out 90% of their values every 3 months, and they're paying around a 10% dividend. But as long as the market's good and the economy is good, real estate looks pretty good. But when the market falls apart and the economy falls apart, one of the first things to die is real estate. So
Absolutely.
you got to pay attention. We can put in stops and limits. We can do all kinds of things to protect. But I like the concept of a person that says, hey, Joe, let me just dink along at 5 or 6%. Ad infinitum, and we've got a couple of different ways to take care of that I think are the smartest things in the world. 340-1590, 340-1590. We're running out of time, but you don't want to talk to us on the radio, which, John, thank you. You're the only one that did. Bulldog, by the way, is gone. He
can still call.
He
We
can
have an
call
800
us,
number.
but
Did he move already?
yeah, it closed yesterday or the day before, so I think you got to be out of your house.
Maybe
when
we
you
should
close.
call him.
Right.
I should call him, pick on him. But anyway, they're moving up to Palm Coast.
That's a nice area. He'll like living up there.
Well, he doesn't. It makes no difference to him. He's keeping Mary Beth happy.
He'll like living up there then.
Because if Mama ain't happy, nobody's
That's
happy.
right.
Right. 340-1590. Anybody you want to talk to, you call the radio station. They'll give you our name and number, and we'll be glad to help you. Remember, it's Greg Fasula, attorney, Dan Woron, independent insurance agent, Victoria Lloyd, Remax of Stewart, Mike Paulus, mortgage broker, and Joe Martek, financial advisor. So now we need parting words of wisdom.
Well, for the last couple of months, we've been looking for the right person to come into the office. We have hired that new person, Allison, starting on the 19th. So I'm really excited about that, and yeah, I'm looking forward to that. So yeah,
That's a good thing.
It's a
Alan,
great
you
thing.
got any parting words?
I just want to wish you a very nice vacation. I guess next 2 weeks you won't be here. right?
Saturday, Bahamas.
and don't wreck the boat.
Yes.
Bahamas, yeah.
The
yeah.
3-hour
As
cruise.
Greg,
Yeah, right,
as
more.
Greg,
The boat is insured, I hope.
as Greg said, you're going to be doing the worst of Martek the next 2 weeks,
Yes,
right?
that's right.
But
Well, luckily, I don't think Greg will be our moderator, our hostess. Oh, excuse me, our host.
here's my quick question, because I'm concerned as an attorney. In case something goes wrong, do you know how to swim?
No.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, I do know how to swim. Can you imagine me out in the Gulf Stream? I'd end up in Nova Scotia before you start looking for me. 340-1590, 340. Okay, you think further than Nova Scotia, Greg?
Ireland.
I don't think you get that far.
Are we out of time? We got what's that mean? 10
30
seconds?
seconds.
30 seconds.
That's what that means. 30. Hey, show me 45 seconds. Well, Greg, say goodbye.
Goodbye.
Alan, say goodbye.
Goodbye.
Dean?
Joseph, be safe.
Hey, Joe, be safe. Have a good trip. Have a good Bahama trip. We'll
Bring
talk-
back lobster.
Bring back. I'm not supposed to, but I might. Anyway, 340-1590. Thank you, and until next week. Until 2-3 weeks, but you can listen to the best or the worst of the next shows for the next 2 weeks. Adios.
You've been listening to the Team Martek Hour. The Team Martek Hour is a paid program. The content was provided by the advertiser. WPSL, its staff, management, and ownership were not responsible for its content. Investment involves risk. Prior to making any investment, an investor should meet suitability requirements. Past results are not necessarily indicative of future performance. Neither the opinions expressed nor the information provided constitutes a recommendation to purchase or provide investment advice. The material presented is not a substitute for obtaining professional advice from a qualified person or firm. Securities offered through Centaurus Financial, member FINRA and SIPC. Tune in again next Wednesday at 11:05 for the Team Martek Hour here on WPSL 1590.